Welcome, friends. Today, we are doing a fragrance review. Wunderbar. And that fragrance review is on Andy Tauer's Lonestar Memories. Now, I've been struggling for a while to think of videos, like what videos to do and stuff, And I was talking to Jura Rose, and he said, why don't you do Lonestar Memories? And I said, that's a good idea. I do like Lonestar Memories. We'll do that. And so here we are, doing a review on Lonestar Memories. So, I will tell you the notes. I will then tell you the notes that I get the most of. And then I will tell you how I feel about it and what I think about it. So, the head notes are green geranium and spicy carrot seed blended with clary sage. The heart notes are a rich, smoky leather accord with cistus and a hint of jasmine. And then the body notes are the finest woods and balms from myrrh, tonka, vetiver, and sandalwood. Andy Tauer, this is from his website, Andy Tauer describes it as an ode on birch tar, true and unique, rich and lasting, the scent of a lonesome rider, wearing old jeans and leather jacket, after a long day on the horse in the dry woods, preparing his coffee on the open, smoky fire. And that description then leads me on to a game. And that game is Red Dead Redemption 2. I wore this about 3 years ago, maybe coming up to 4 years ago. It's about 3 years ago when that game came out. And I wore this the night I bought it. And I wore this playing it for the first time and many subsequent times playing it. And this fragrance absolutely nails that experience of cowboy. Now, I imagine if you were to speak to a cowboy, the cowboy would probably say this smells nothing like being a cowboy, which is probably true. But for like people who aren't a cowboy, this like will evoke that. Before I get into that, I will tell you which notes I get the most of. And they are the spice, the spicy carrot seed and the clary sage at the top, the leather accord, the vetiver, maybe a little bit of jasmine as well. These notes are taken from Andy Tauer's website. But back to the game. This does smell like what I imagine it would be like for someone to be on their own in the country, working hard in the heat and at night, long days, danger, working with your hands, working with fire, working with animals, and being on your own at night, settling down after a hard day's work, tired. So, when I first spray it on, and I will spray it on, oh, God almighty, this is an older bottle, and the sprayers on these old towers were fucking awful. Absolutely shocking. As good as the perfumes were, right? The sprayers were awful. So immediately when I first spray it, right, what I get an almost mentholated greenness, and that must be the green geranium, because you do get like a sort of minty sort of vibe from geranium and like a cleanness and a freshness. This isn't necessarily minty, but it is fresh, and it has a cleanliness, and it has a almost like antiseptic quality about it, um, a mentholated quality, such as like like oil products. When you say you fill your car up with petrol or diesel, and you get some on your hands and you wipe it on your jeans, or if you're working like as a mechanic, you know, um, and you just rub your hands on your old jeans or on like your old jacket. That's what the top sort of gives me. It gives me that sort of. It's not quite as medicinal as this Gucci Guilty Absolute, but it's got a similar sort of vibe at the top. Imagine that medicinal vibe, but green, like a mentholated greenness. And it comes from the vetiver, it comes from the geranium, and it comes from the leather as well. Andy Tower says on his website, an ode on birch tar. I get that point as well. I get that sort of birchy, oily, tarry sort of vibe. You can imagine, when you stand by a fire, like an open fire outside, and the wind changes and you get like smoke blown onto your clothes, and your clothes will then stink of it. That's what this is. This has got like byproduct on it, soot, oil, smoke on your clothes, worn into the fabric, as if this has been like a repeated process, yet your clothes are still clean. It's got that sort of vibe. It's also got spice at the top, so the geranium is mentholated, but it's not minty. There is a spice. And Andy Tower uses carrot seed quite a lot, like a spicy carrot seed. He uses that in Later Desert American as well, I think. And it's fantastic. I really like that note. Then comes the leather. Very, very soon after this top comes the leather. And since there's leather and vetiver, that is the same accord, that is the same mixture of notes in here. And I think that's what gives this green mentholated vibe. Leather and vetiver, whenever I've smelled it together in a perfume, gives this sort of mentholated vibe, this green, smoky, clean vibe, like cleansed with fire. It gives it that sort of vibe. A dryness as well. The leather in this is stunning. It's got like a very subtle, very aged, very worn, buttery sort of leather, cracked as if it's been used, but it's still got its integrity. This perfume does smell like integrity. It smells like struggle, but noble struggle, The leather never goes away. The leather's there until the far dry down. The geranium at the top sort of eases off a bit, like the medicinal sort of vibe calms down a bit. The spiciness calms down a bit, but never really goes away. The fragrance is so compact and tight and well kept together, and it's been blended beautifully. It's been blended perfectly. He really, I don't want to say this really, but he really peaked early with Later Desert American, Lonestar Memories, Rose Incense. Like they were all in his first 5 releases. Au Cours de Desert. That came later, though, about 10 years later, I think. And then Lonesome Rider as well, which I've got. I'll come on to that in a second. So it gets down. The top sort of calms down a lot, but it never goes. The mid's always there, and then the bass becomes more apparent, such as the quality of the blending that it transitions, but it's very subtle, and it doesn't, and you never truly lose any part of the perfume. The myrrh adds to this, not mentholated. It stops being mentholated, but it's still got a cleanness, like a crispness to it, and that's like the myrrh. There's a warmth comes from the tonka, and the vetiver is again adding to this sort of green freshness. It's smoky but fresh at the same time. It's a brilliant trick to pull off. The sandalwood feels like it holds it all together but never becomes apparent in and of itself. And it's a proper triumph, and it does remind us of Red Dead Redemption 2. If you like that game and you like perfume, try this, wear this while you play it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This perfume will always be synonymous with that game for me, even though I'm not a cowboy, but I like to play at it. The point I was going to make just there was that Andy Tower has a habit of doing this. He's done it twice in his line that I'm aware of. Actually, he's done it 3 times that I'm aware of. Rose Incense and Incense Extreme, Le de Desert Marocain and Au Cours de Desert, and Lonestar Memories and Lonesome Rider. I know this hasn't got a label on it, but you'll just have to trust us. I don't know. Can you see that? I don't know that you can because the light's on. Well, I'll turn the light off. You see that? No, you can't because my camera's poverty. Anyway, that is Lonesome Rider. You can't get that anymore. This Lonesome Rider is a sequel to Lonestar Memories. Au Cours de Desert is a sequel to Le de Desert. So, what do these two have in common other than that they're linked that way? Not much as far as smell's concerned. I'm not going to review this, but this has got more of a cooler Fahrenheit sort of vibe. There's an element of Fahrenheit in this as well, in that it's got that oily petroleum sort of wiped your hands on your jeans sort of vibe, and your jeans smelling like that. You know, working jeans. You know, the jeans you wear to work if you work in a factory, if you work on motor vehicles of yore. Because in 10 or 15 years, there won't be any more motor cars anymore. They'll all be electric cars. But this is the smell of like that, of like the motor car's heyday. The oil everywhere, getting splashed with oil, getting oil on your hands, needing to use like product on your hands to get it off. Gun oil in this case, saddle leather, like a manual life, you know. And it, in that sort of context, this is a bit like a vintage perfume in that it harkens back to an older time. And I think that's one of the things I like about vintage perfumes. And even though this perfume came out in the mid-2000s, it does remind me of a life from 100, 140, 150 years ago. And I like that. Some people like being taken to a place with perfume, and I think that maybe as far as I'm concerned, I like being taken to a time and a place. That's one of the reasons, one of many reasons, that I absolutely love Lonestar Memories. This is much more modern in its smell, much more Fahrenheit-y, which takes us back to the 80s. But this takes me back to the 1880s. This takes you back to the 1980s. Star of the show is probably the leather, but there's a lot going on here. It's blended to perfection. It's a triumph of niche perfumery from one of the truest and best niche houses that there is. I love this perfume. It will always remind me of a very specific time and place in my life, which at the same time then draws me back to a completely different time and place, somewhere I've never been and a time I wasn't born in. And that's what perfume should be. It should be transportative. It should be able to take you places. I hope you have enjoyed this review. Whenever I review a perfume, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't feel like I do them justice. But I hope I have conveyed in some sort of way how I feel about it, and I do love it. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you again soon.